Chapter 41, An Idol in South India. You are the first Westerner, Dick, ever to enter that shrine. Many others have tried in vain. At my words, Mr. Wright looked startled and pleased. We had just left the beautiful Chamundi temple in the hills overlooking Mysore in southern India. There we had bowed before the gold and silver altars of the goddess Chamundi, patron deity of the family of the reigning Maharaja. As a souvenir of the unique honor, Mr. Wright, carefully stowing away a few blessed rose petals, I will always preserve this flower sprinkled by the priest with rose water. My companion and I were spending the months in November 1935 as guests of the state of Mysore. The Maharaja H. Sri Krishnajaja Wadiyar IV is a model prince with intelligent devotion to his people. A pious Hindu, the Maharaj has empowered a Mohammedan, the able Mizra Ismail, as his Doon or premier. Popular representation is given to the 7 million inhabitants of Mysore in both an assembly and a legislative council. The heir to the Maharaja, H., the Yavaraja Sir Sri Krishna Nareshwarenja Wadiyar, had invited my secretary and me to visit his enlightened and progressive realm. During the past fortnight, I had addressed thousands of Mysore citizens and students at the town hall, the Maharaj College, the University Medical School, and 3 mass meetings in Bangalore at the National High School, the Intermediate College, and the Chetty Town Hall, where over 3,000 persons had assembled. Whether the eager listeners had been able to credit the glowing picture I drew of America, I know not, but the applause had always been loudest when I spoke of the mutual benefits that could flow from exchange of the best features in East and West. Mr. Wright and I were now relaxing in a tropical peace. His travel diary gives the following account of his impressions of Mysore. Brilliantly green rice fields, varied by tasseled sugar-cane patches, nestle at the protective foot of rocky hills, hills dotting the emerald panorama, like excrescents of black stone in the play of colors enhanced by the sudden and dramatic disappearance of the sun, as it seeks rest behind the solemn hills. Many rapturous moments have been spent in gazing, almost absent-mindedly, at the ever-changing canvas of God stretched across the firmament, for his touch alone is able to produce colors that vibrate with the freshness of life. That youth of colors is lost when man tries to imitate with mere pigments, for the Lord resorts to mere simple and effective medium oils that are neither oils nor pigments, but mere rays of lights. He tosses a splash of light here and it reflects red. He waves the brush again and it blends gradually into orange and gold. Then with a piercing thrust he stabs the clouds with a streak of purple that leaves a ringlet or fringe of red oozing out of the wound of the clouds. And so on and on he plays night and morning alike. Ever changing, ever new, ever fresh. No patterns, no duplicates, no colors just the same. The beauty of the Indian change in day to night is beyond compare elsewhere. Often the sky looks as if God had taken all the colors in his kit and given him one mighty kaleidoscopic toss into the heavens. I must relate the splendor of a twilight visit to the huge Krishnaraja Sagar Dam, constructed 12 miles outside the Mysore. Yogananda and I boarded a small bus and with a small boy as official cranker or battery substitute started off over a smooth dirt road, just as the sun was setting on the horizon and squashing like an overripe tomato. Our journey led past the omnipresent square rice fields, through a line of comforting banyan trees, in between a grove of towering coconut palms, with vegetation nearly as thick as the jungle, and finally, approaching the crest of the hill, we came face to face with an immense artificial lake, reflecting the stars and fringe of palms and other trees. Surrounded by lovely terraced gardens and a row of electric lights on the brink of the dam, and below it our eyes met a dazzling spectacle of color beams playing on the geyser-like fountains. Like so many streams of brilliant ink pouring forth gorgeously blue waterfalls, arresting red cataracts, green and yellow sprays, elephants spouting water, a miniature of the Chicago World's Fair, and yet modernly outstanding in this ancient land of paddy fields and simple people, who have given us such a loving welcome that I fear it will take more than a strength to bring Yogananda back to America. Another rare privilege, my first elephant ride. Yesterday, The Yuva Raja invited us to a summer palace to enjoy a ride on one of his elephants, an enormous beast. I mounted a ladder provided to climb aloft to the howdah, or saddle, which is silk-cushioned and box-like, and then by a rolling, tossing, swaying, heaving down into a gully, too much thrilled to worry or exclaim, but hanging on for dear life. Southern India, rich with historical and archaeological remains, is a land of definite and yet indefinable charm. To the north of Mysore is the largest native state in India, Hyderabad, a picturesque plateau cut by a mighty Godavari River, broad, fertile plains, the lovely Nilgiris or Blue Mountains, other regions with barren hills of limestone or granite. Hyderabad, history is a long, colorful story, starting 3,000 years ago, under the Andhra kings, and continuing under Hindu dynasties until A.D. 1924, when it passed to a line of Muslim rulers who reign to this day. The most breathtaking display of architecture, sculpture, and painting in all India is found at Hyderabad in the ancient rock-sculptured caves of Ellora and Ajanta. The Kailasa at Ellora, a huge monolithic temple, possesses carved figures of gods, men, and beasts in the stupendous proportions of Michelangelo. Ajanta is the site of 5 cathedrals and 25 monasteries, all rock excavations maintained by tremendous frescoed pillars, of which artists and sculptors have immortalized their genius. Hyderabad city is graced by the Osmanian University and by the imposing Mecca Masjid Mosque, where 10,000 Mohammedans may assemble for prayer. Mysore State, too, is a scenic wonderland, 3,000 feet above sea level, abounding in dense tropical forest, the home of wild elephants, bisons, bears, panthers, and tigers. Its 2 chief cities, Bangalore and Mysore, are clean, attractive, with many parks and public gardens. Hindu architecture and sculpture achieved their highest perfection in Mysore under the patronage of Hindu kings from the 11th to the 15th century. The temple at Belur, an 11th century masterpiece completed during the reign of King Vishnuvaharna, is unsurpassed in the world for its delicacy of detail and exuberant imagery. The rock pillar found in northern Mysore date from the 3rd century B.C., illuminating the memory of King Ashoka. He succeeded to the throne of Mysore dynasty, then prevailing. His empire included nearly all of modern India, Afghanistan, and Baluchistan. This illustrious emperor, considered even by Western historians to be an incomparable ruler, has left the following wisdom on a rock memorial. This religious inscription is engraved in order that our sons and grandsons may not think a new conquest is necessary, that they may not think conquest by sword deserves the name of conquest, that they may see in it nothing but destruction and violence, that they may consider nothing as true conquest save the conquest of religion. Such conquests have value in this world and in the next. Asoka was the grandson of the formidable Chandragupta Maurya, known to the Greeks as Sandracacus, who in his youth had met Alexander the Great. Later, Chandragupta destroyed the Macedonian garrison left in India, defeated the invading Greek army of Seleucus in the Punjab, and then received at his Patna court the Hellenistic ambassador Megasthenes. Intensely interesting stories have been minutely recorded by Greek historians and others who accompanied or followed after Alexander in his expedition to India. The narratives of Arrian, Diodorus, Plutarch, and Strabo the geographer have been translated by Dr. J. W. McCrindle to throw a shaft of light on ancient India. The most admirable feature of Alexander's unsuccessful invasion was the deep interest he displayed in Hindu philosophy and in the yogis and holy men whom he encountered from time to time, and whose society he eagerly sought. Shortly after the Greek warrior had arrived in Taxila in northern India, he sent a messenger, Onesicritus, a disciple of the Hellenic school of Diogenes, to fetch an Indian teacher. Dandanamus, a great sannyasa of Taxila, "Hail to thee, O teacher of Brahmins," Onesicritus said after seeking out Dandanamus in his forest retreat. "The son of the mighty god Zeus, being Alexander, who is the sovereign lord of all men, asks you go to him, and if you comply he will reward you with great gifts, but if you refuse he will cut off your head." The yogi received this fairly compulsive invitation calmly, and did not so much as lift up his head from his couch of leaves. I also am a son of Zeus. If Alexander be such, he commented, I want nothing that is Alexander's, for I am content with what I have. While I see that he wanders with his men over sea and land for no advantage, and is never coming to an end of his wanderings, go and tell Alexander that God, the Supreme King, is never the author of insolent wrong, but is the creator of light, of peace, of life, of water, of the body of man and of soul. He receives all men when death sets him free, being in no way subject to evil disease. He alone is the God of my homage, who abhors slaughter and instigates no war. Alexander is no god, since he must taste of death. Continued the sage in quiet scorn. How can such as he be the world's master, when he has not yet seated himself on the throne of inner universal dominion? Neither as yet has he entered living into Hades, nor does he know the course of the sun through the central regions of the earth, while the nations at its boundaries have not so much as heard his name. After his chastisement, surely the most caustic ever sent to assault the ears of Lord of the world, the sage added ironically, If Alexander's present dominions be not capacious enough for his desire, let him cross the Ganges River. There he will find a region able to sustain all his men, if the country on this side be too narrow to hold him. Know this, however, that what Alexander offers and the gifts he promises are things to me utterly useless. The things I prize and find of real use and worth are these leaves which are my house, these blooming plants which supply me with daily food, and the water which is my drink, while all other possessions which are amassed with anxious care are wont to prove rumors to those who gather them, and cause only sorrow and vexation, with which every poor mortal is fully fraught. As for me, I lie upon the forest leaves, and have nothing which requires guarding, close my eyes in tranquil slumber, whereas had I anything to guard, that would banish sleep. The earth supplies me with everything, even as a mother her child with milk. I go wherever I please, and there are no cares with which I am forced to cumber myself. Should Alexander cut off my head, he cannot also destroy my soul. My head alone then silent will remain, leaving the body like a torn garment upon the earth, whence also it was taken. I then, becoming spirit, shall ascend to my God, who enclosed us all in flesh and left us upon earth to prove whether, when here below, we shall live obedient to his ordinance, who will require all of us, when we depart hence to his presence, an account of our life. He is judge of all proud wrong-doing, for the groans of the oppressed become the punishment of the oppressor. Let Alexander then terrify with these threats those who wish for wealth and who dread death, for against us these weapons are both alike powerless. The Brahmins neither love gold nor fear death. Go then and tell Alexander this. Dandamas has no need of aught that is yours, and therefore will not go to you. And if you want anything from Dandamas, come you with him. With close attention, Alexander received through Onoscris the message from the yogi, and felt a strong desire than ever to see Dandamas, who, though old and naked, was the only antagonist in whom he, the conqueror of many nations, had met more than his match. Alexander invited to Taxila a number of Brahmin ascetics, noted for their skill in answering philosophical questions with pithy wisdom. An account of the verbal skirmish is given by Plutarch. Alexander himself framed all the questions. Which be the more numerous, the living or the dead? The living, for the dead are not. Which breeds the larger animals, the sea or the land? The land, for the sea is only a part of land. Which is the cleverest of beasts? The one which with man is not yet acquainted. Man fears the unknown. Which existed first, the day or the night? The day was first by one day. This reply caused Alexander to betray surprise. The Brahmin added, Impossible questions require impossible answers. How best a man make himself beloved? A man will be beloved if, possessed with great power, he still does not make himself feared. How may a man become a god? By doing that which is impossible for a man to do. Which is stronger, life or death? Life, because it bears so many evils. Alexander succeeded in taking out of India as his teacher a true yogi, This man was Swami Sphinx, called Kalanos by the Greeks because the saint, a devotee of God in the form of Kali, greeted everyone by pronouncing her auspicious name. Kalanos accompanied Alexander to Persia. On a stated day at Susa in Persia, Kalanos gave up his aged body by entering a funeral pyre in view of the whole Macedonian army. The historians record the astonishment of the soldiers, who observed that the yogi had no fear of pain or death, and who never once moved from his position as he was consumed in the flames. Before leaving for his cremation, Kalanos had embraced all his close companions, but refrained from bidding farewell to Alexander, to whom the Hindu sage had merely remarked, "I shall see you shortly in Babylon." Alexander left Persia and died a year later in Babylon. His Indian guru's words had been his way of saying he would be present with Alexander in life and death. The Greek historians have left us many vivid and inspiring pictures of Indian society, Hindu law. Arian tells us, protects the people, and ordains that no one among them shall, under any circumstances, be a slave, but that, enjoying freedom themselves, they shall respect the equal right to it which all possess. For those, they thought, they have learned neither to domineer over nor cringe to others, will attain the life best adapted to all vicissitudes of lot. The Indians, runs another text, neither put out money at usury, nor know how to borrow. It is contrary to established usage for an Indian either to do or suffer a wrong, and therefore they neither make contracts nor require securities. Healing, we are told, was by simple and natural means. Cures are effected rather by regulating diet than by the use of medicines. The remedies most esteemed are ointments and plasters. All others are considered to be in great measure pernicious. Engagement in war is restricted to the Kshatriyas or warrior class. Nor would an enemy coming up, a husbandman, at his work on his land, do him any harm, for men of this class, being regarded as a public benefactor, are protected from all injury. The land thus remaining unravaged and producing heavy crops supplies the inhabitants with the requisites to make life enjoyable. The emperor, Chandragupta, who lived in 305 BC, had defeated Alexander's general, Seleucus, decided 7 years later to hand over the reins of India's government to his son. Traveling to South India, Chandragupta spent the last 12 years of his life as a penniless ascetic, seeking self-realization in a rocky cave at Stravabagla, now honored as a Mayor's shrine. Nearby stands the world's largest statue, carved out of an immense boulder by the Jains in A.D. 983, to honor the saint Komachwara. The ubiquitous religious shrines of Mysore are a constant reminder of the many great saints of South India. One of these masters, Theyamunivar, has left us the following challenging poem. You can control a mad elephant. You can shut the mouth of a bear and a tiger. You can ride a lion. You can play with a cobra. By alchemy you can eke out your livelihood. You can wander through the universe incognito. You can make vassals of the gods. You can be ever youthful. You can walk on water and live in fire. But control of the mind is better and more difficult. In the beautiful and fertile state of Travancore in the extreme south of India, where traffic is conveyed over rivers and canals, the Maharaj assumes every year a hereditary obligation to expiate the sin incurred by wars and annexations in the distant part of several petty states to Travancore. For 56 days annually, the Maharaj visits the temple thrice daily to hear Vedic hymns and recitations. An expiation ceremony ends with a Lakshmin, or illumination of the temple by 100,000 lights. The great Hindu lawgiver, Manu, has outlined the duties of a king. He should shower amenities like Indra, collect taxes gently and imperceptibly as the sun obtains vapor from water, enter into the life of his subject as the wind goes everywhere, mete out even justice to all like Yama, god of death, bind transgressors in a noose like Varuna, Vedic deity of sky and wind, please all like the moon, burn up vicious enemies like the god of fire, and support all like the earth goddess. In a war a king should not fight with poisonous or fiery weapons, nor kill weak or unready or weaponless foes or men, who are in fear or who pray for protection, or who run away. War should be resorted to only at the last resort. Results are always doubtful in war. Madras Presidency on the southeastern coast of India contains the flat, spacious, sea-girt city of Madras, and Kanjivaram, the Golden City, capital site of the Pallava dynasty, whose kings ruled during the early centuries of the Christian era. In modern Madras Presidency, the nonviolent ideals of Mahatma Gandhi have made great headway. The white distinguishing Gandhi caps are seen everywhere. In the South generally, the Mahatma has effected many important temple reforms for untouchables, as well as caste system reforms. The origin of the caste system, formulated by the great legislator Manu, was admirable. He saw clearly that men are distinguished by natural evolution in 4 great classes: those capable of offering service to society through their bodily labor, Sudras; those who serve through mentality, skill, agricultural trade, commerce, business life in general, Vaishis; those whose talents are administrative, executive, and protective rulers of warriors, Kshatriyas; those of a contemplative nature, spiritually inspired and inspiring, Brahmins. Neither birth nor sacraments, nor study nor ancestry can decide whether a person is twice born, i.e. a Brahmin. The Mahabharata declares, character and conduct only can decide. Manu instructed society to show respect to its members insofar as they possessed wisdom, virtue, age, kinship, or lastly wealth. Riches in Vedic India are always despised if they were hoarded or unavailable for charitable purposes. Ungenerous men of great wealth were assigned a low rank in society. Serious evil arose when the caste system became hardened through the centuries in a hereditary halter. Social reformers like Gandhi and the members of various numerous societies in India are making slow but sure progress in restoring the ancient values of caste, based solely on natural qualifications and not on birth. Every nation on earth has its own distinctive misery-producing karma to deal with and remove. India, too, with her versatile and invulnerable spirit, shall prove herself equal to the task of caste reformation. So entrancing is southern India that Mr. Wright and I yearn to prolong our ideal. But time, in its immemorial rudeness, dealt us no courteous extension. I was scheduled soon to address the concluding session of the Indian Philosophical Congress at Calcutta University. At the end of the visit to Mysore, I enjoyed a talk with Sir C. V. Raman, president of the Indian Academy of Science. This brilliant Hindu physicist was awarded the Nobel Prize in 1930 for his important discovery in the diffusion of light, the Raman effect, now known to every schoolboy. Waving a reluctant farewell to a crowd of Madras students and friends, Mr. Wright and I set out for the north. On the way we stopped before a little shrine sacred to the memory of Sadavisa Brahman, in whose 8th century life story miracles cluster quickly. A large Sadasiva shrine at Nur, erected by the Raja of Pudukkottai, is a pilgrimage spot which has witnessed numerous divine blessings. Many quaint stories of Sadavisa, a lovable and fully illuminated master, are still current among the South Indian villages. Immersed one day in samadhi on the bank of the Kaveri River, Sadavisa was seen to be carried away by a sudden flood. Weeks later he was found buried deep beneath a mound of earth. As the villagers' shovels struck his body, the saint rose and walked briskly away. Sadasiva never spoke a word or wore a cloth. One morning the new Yogi unceremoniously entered the tent of a Mohammedan chieftain. His ladies screamed in alarm. The warrior dealt a savage sword thrust at Sadavisa, whose arm was severed. The master departed, unconcernedly. Overcome by remorse, the Mohammedan picked up the arm from the floor and followed Sadavisa. The Yogi quietly inserted his arm into the bleeding stump. When the warrior humbly asked for some spiritual instruction, Sadavisa wrote with his finger on the sands, "Do not do what you want, and then you may do what you like." The Mohammedan was uplifted to an exalted state of mind and understood the saint's paradoxical advice to be a guide to soul freedom through mastery of the ego. The village children once expressed a desire, in Sadasiva's presence, to see the Madura religious festival 150 miles away. The yogi indicated to the little ones that they should touch his body. Lo, instantly the whole group was transported to Madura. The children wandered happily among the thousands of pilgrims. In a few hours the yogi brought his small charges home by his simple mode of transportation. The astonished parents heard the vivid tales of the procession of images, and noted that several children were carrying bags of Madura sweets. An incredulous youth derided the saint in the story. The following morning he approached Sadasiva. "Master," he said scornfully, "why don't you take me to the festival, even as you did yesterday for the other children?" Sadasiva complied. The boy immediately found himself among the distant city throng. But alas, where was the saint when the youth wanted to leave? The weary boy reached his home by the ancient and prosaic method of foot locomotion. End of chapter.